Hello, viewers, and welcome to our first of 4 Brunswick County candidate conversations. The League of Women Voters of the Lower Cape Fear is conducting conversations in place of candidate forums for several races in Brunswick County, as some candidates did not respond to or said no to our invitation to be part of a candidates forum. We feel it's important for candidates who are willing to be questioned on issues of importance to us as voters to have the opportunity to present their views. So in order to make that possible, we're trying this format instead. The League of Women Voters promotes democracy by empowering voters through programs like this conversation. We also maintain a website for learning more about the candidates. That's LWVLCF.org. And we also have one specifically for voting times, and that's vote411.org. It's especially helpful in 2020 as our ballot is pretty long. Comments and answers to questions from the candidates who took part in this survey have their comments and their answers to the question in their own unedited words. So Vote 411, along with our own website, our Facebook page, Twitter, and YouTube accounts help keep voters informed. On our webpage, you can see videos of candidate forums that we have held. We had 4 so far, including one for the Board of Education in Brunswick County. These conversations will also be posted on YouTube and our website, and you'll be able to look at those later. Today's conversation is also co-sponsored by 2 of our partners, the YWCA of the Lower Cape Fear and Coastal Review Online, which is published by the North Carolina Coastal Federation. We really appreciate the support and co-sponsorship of these 2 partnering organizations. We have several partners and we try to bring programs together. So my name is Gail Bromley, and I've been active in the League of Women Voters for 8 years, including acting as former Voter Services Chair for both Brunswick and New Hanover counties. And I'm currently Fair Elections Action Team Chair. At this point, I'd like to welcome Marcia Morgan, candidate for District 19 for the North Carolina House. Now, districts in our region have been redrawn for this election as the courts have changed the districts in order for a fair election. They've tried to eliminate some of the partisan advantage that comes with gerrymandering. So you can see the district, it's 19, it's that orange section that runs around the lower part of New Hanover and some of the western part of New Hanover, and then over on the Brunswick side as far as around Holden Beach. So it's a rather interesting and new district, and one that includes many of the beaches. So it's about 55% of the potential voters live in New Hanover and 45% live in Brunswick. So they've tried to eliminate, as I said, the problems that come with gerrymandering. And if Marcia or her opponent is elected, this district will cover significant areas in New Hanover and Brunswick County, especially along the coastline. So Marcia, with that introduction, let's begin.
All right.
And we welcome you to our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. And if I could take just a second and put a plug in for the League of Women Voters and the vote411.org. During the primary election, I was at one of the Southport locations and was hanging out, as I usually do, with one of the Republican poll workers. And people were coming up that didn't know who they wanted to vote for. They just knew they wanted to vote. And it's kind of cumbersome to try and go through a whole ballot and explain who people are. And I really support the bipartisan effort that the League of Women Voters puts out. And so I gave them the information to go back home and do the research so that they could find the best candidate for them. Not promoting, I can tell you about me, but I can't tell you about all of the other candidates.
Right.
And I want to make sure that voters are informed and that they are selecting for themselves the best person that fits with their ideals. And so they came back later and said what a big help that had been, and they really appreciated the opportunity. So again, I just wanted to give you all a shout out of what a benefit it really does for voters that need that extra help.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. It's a nationwide effort, and we participate in that, and we're very happy that we do, and we're so happy when candidates take advantage of it and give voters information. So Marcia, you got a really interesting background. You've had a lot of jobs, a mix of experiences. So would you tell us a little bit about what you think in those experiences helps prepare you to be in the North Carolina House? And then also tell us what sparked you to decide to run.
All right, how much time do we have? I was born and raised in Texas, the youngest of four. My father died when I was 2, so raised by a single parent. And because my father had a heart condition, there was no insurance. And it was, I'll say, a very poor beginning. But I benefited from having a good education. And the one thing that our mother instilled in us was that her daughters would get an education and would be able to support themselves. So the daughters all got college degrees, and it was just, I just always knew I was going to be a teacher. I still consider myself a teacher. I started out working in Head Start when the program first began in Texas. I then taught in the public schools. I went to Ohio State for my graduate work, my master's and my PhD, and taught some interesting courses there. In terms of, I became an NRA instructor so I could teach riflery. I was also a self-defense instructor. And my other combat courses were badminton and table tennis. From there, I went to Smith College and was on the graduate faculty. So I have a broad range of background, and I'll say socioeconomic background, academic levels. I think what's really valuable about the Head Start and the public school teaching, which was in a low income, wildly diverse community, was understanding the benefits of preschool programs and what an impact that can have on a child's life, and how critical it is in today's world that we have good programs. I went into the military. The short Reader's Digest version is, my job opportunity at Smith was terminated. I've had a couple of jobs I really loved that I took unpopular stands that I thought were ethically correct and lost those jobs. This was one of those times. I didn't understand why that door had closed to me, because I had always felt that I had been directed, if you want to say divine intervention, throughout my life that had guided me, and now this door had closed. And I call it my 2x4 moment with God. It slapped me up the side of the head to turn me in another direction, and I wound up in the military, not knowing anything about it, no background. No one in my family had been in the military. And it was at first going to be just a short stint, and that turned into 25 years. Mm-hmm. And I retired as an Army colonel. During that time, I had the opportunity to serve in 4 different countries and command units in 4 different countries. And I talk about that being Korea, Germany, the Netherlands, and Alabama. Again, very diverse cultures. And I think that that's one of the benefits that I bring to this opportunity to be in the legislature, is the diversity of my background and the ability to communicate with a wide range of individuals and to have common experiences with them. I also had 2 tours in the Pentagon, one on the Army staff, one with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. One of the reasons that I intentionally used the color purple for my campaign stems initially from that time on the Joint staff, where the color purple represented to me the jointness, the working together. And it's also what you get when you blend red and blue. And this is from the very outset when I first decided to run for office. That has been my commitment. that I want to represent everyone to the best of my ability. In terms of why I decided to run, um, probably a number of things. I wasn't happy with what I was seeing happen in either the state or the federal legislature. I wasn't happy with what I was seeing happen in politics, and felt like I could do better. When I first ran in District 19, I was running against an opponent who had served for a number of terms running unopposed, and just innately, I felt that that was wrong. You need to have a choice. And so that was really why I selected that particular race. Politics is not on my bucket list. It's not a thing I want to do. I found that I was very good at being retired. It was kind of, you find my passion in life. It's being retired. I'm really good at this. So it was, I had to think hard about, do I want to give this up? But making a difference was really important. And I felt like I still had enough life left in me, enough gas in the tank that I could make a difference. And it was just important for me to stand up and try and be a voice for people who maybe had not had a voice in the past.
Thank you. I learned some things. What about your legislative priorities, Marcia? If you are able to win this election and get into the North Carolina House, what would you like to see immediately changed, and expand on a couple if you would?
Certainly. And my answer is a little bit different now than it would have been 7 months ago, as we're looking at the impact of COVID on people. As we're seeing in the news today, COVID is no respecter of who you are or what your background is. But in North Carolina, we are seeing that it seems to hit the Black and brown communities harder. One of the things that boggles my mind in North Carolina is the reluctance to pass Medicaid expansion. I don't understand how taxpayers are willing to they pay their federal taxes, the money goes to Washington, and then it goes to some other state to take care of the health issues in another state, instead of coming back to take care of the people here in North Carolina. And we've said over and over again, the estimated impact was at 600,000. They're saying that number has probably gone up to now 750,000 people who would be impacted for the good if they had affordable health care, if they had that Medicaid expansion benefit. It would also bring 37,000 to 40,000 jobs to North Carolina. It would help support the rural hospitals, like you have in Southport area. To me, like I said, it's kind of a no-brainer that this is something that we really need to pass, and we need to do it soon. And if we'd had all of those medical facilities in place, we would have been in a better position to deal with the people who are suffering from COVID and COVID-related diseases. So that has moved to the top of my list. Next is going to be education. As I said, my background is a teacher. I'm always going to be concerned about that, because I believe that a quality education is really at the cornerstone of our society as a whole, and of how we can progress. Our Constitution guarantees the children a quality education. To do that, we have to pay teachers what they're worth. We have to treat them with respect. North Carolina is one of the wealthier states in the country, yet we are paying our teachers at the bottom of the scale. That's not right. Teachers are having to work 2 and 3 jobs just to do something that they want to do, that they love. And now we're putting their lives and their health in jeopardy by expecting them to continue to teach under COVID-related situations. So we need to increase teacher pay. We need to increase per pupil spending, which again is near the bottom of the ranking order. We need to increase our investment in the infrastructure. We need to make sure that we're not giving them books that are held together with duct tape, that there are enough devices to go around for every child to have an opportunity to learn at whatever means that we're teaching at that moment. We need to make sure we've got broadband available for all of the students. So obviously education is very critical. And I think the environment, especially when you look at District 19, it's bordered by the ocean and it's got the Cape Fear River running through the middle of it. So obviously a lot of issues that deal with the environment are located as a focal point right here in District 19. We need to stop corporations like Chemours and Duke Energy from dumping pollutants into the environment, whether it's from a coli spill, whether it's the PFAS, Gen X, all of the chemicals that are coming from the Chemours plant. And we need to make the corporations responsible for cleaning up their mess and not passing that cost on to the taxpayer. So one of the things that I will talk about often is that the state has two really important treasures, the children and the environment. And if you destroy or you break either one of those, it takes a long time to fix. It's not a simple flip a switch and we can turn the light back on. It really goes back to a basic need of having to build back up again. I guess another part of the infrastructure or the environment that I'm concerned about is offshore drilling and anything that leads up to it. Some people don't seem to understand that even the testing, the seismic testing that goes on ahead of time is damaging to the wildlife, to the mammals. And so it's not something that we would benefit from. I'm glad to see that we are finally, I think, getting some traction and stopping any thought of going forward with anything even related to offshore drilling. We have an abundance of sun and wind. I live in Carolina Beach. I mean, I know there's a lot of wind. I know there's a lot of sun. So we have solar energy, we have wind energy, there's even wave energy. We need to look for alternative forms of sources of that energy. We need to solicit businesses that will make use of alternate energy forms and again, not pollute our environment.
I know for myself, this beautiful environment is one of the reasons that I'm living here. And we've been coming to this region since the 70s. So when we retired, we selected this area. So we showed the district that you're going to be covering, and it includes places that District 19 didn't include before. A lot of beach communities, including the one that you live in, but we have right over to Holden Beach here in Brunswick County. How would you go about trying to represent two different areas, but areas that have a commonality in terms of their beach communities especially?
I think it's really important when you say, how would I go about it? It boils down to communication, to listening, to finding opportunities for whether it's a town hall situation, just to make sure that I understand what the issues are. Because even though there are beach communities on both sides, there may be some different concerns of how they address those issues. And so it's very important that I have the opportunity to talk to people face to face, that they have the opportunity to talk to me. And I want to make sure that they understand that I believe in accessibility. I believe in, I'll go back to a military term. We used to call it an open door policy, where it was required for a commander to have a certain number of hours, like once a week, that any soldier could come in and talk to you about any issue they had. They didn't have to have an appointment. They could just come in and see you. And I think that idea is an important one in a representative, that people feel that they have that commitment from their representative, that they have that ability to kind of reach out and touch you, and they know that you're going to hear them. So I know that there are a number of diverse issues. One of the ways that I approach an issue when I find out. My background is in research, is I study it, and I try to learn what are the different pros and cons, who's impacted, who is impacted in a negative manner, who is impacted in a positive manner, where is the greatest good, and I apply that to all that I do, and that would be part of what I do as a legislator.
You talked about dealing with Medicare expansion and looking to expand healthcare opportunities. Do you want to say anything more about healthcare? Because so many are uninsured. COVID-19 is making even more come out of the workplace, not being able to do the jobs they normally would do. And here we have an industry that is so dependent on tourists. What do you see to help beyond expanding Medicaid to help with the health issues?
I think we definitely, even without COVID, we needed to take a hard look at unemployment insurance. The benefits were cut drastically by an earlier legislature, and we need to restore at least 26 weeks of benefits. We need to increase the level of benefits that a person can receive, so that we can take care, especially as you're saying right now, we have businesses small businesses that are going under because they just don't have adequate income, and the unemployment benefits are not enough to keep going. We have individuals who were maybe a waiter or a waitress or had some form of labor position, and the jobs aren't there right now. They're willing to work, they want to work, but the opportunity is not there. So we have to make sure that we have something that will help take care of them. So the first thing would also be to increase unemployment benefits.
Okay, that would certainly go a long way in assisting. In many state legislatures, and I know I've lived extensively in New York State and then Arizona, and now here, there's always a bit of tension between the House and the Senate, and that's true here in North Carolina. And then there's tension, especially these days, there's a lot of tension between the parties. And so you've got all that partisan divide as well. And it seems to be, the chasm seems to be growing larger instead of smaller. Do you have some ideas for how you might communicate better and improve communication between the two houses and also between the two parties, two major parties anyway?
I do, and I have a personal commitment. One of the things that I drafted when I ran in 2018 was a statement of accountability, which included my commitment to reach across the aisle, to work with everyone. I think that what we have to do is get away from this. I've got a stake in the ground here, and there's a stake in the ground here, and I'm not going to move off of it, because you don't progress. You don't move forward if you don't talk to each other. And I'm a big proponent of collaboration, that when we have issues, I believe that there are things that we should agree on from the very beginning. And for example, would be, we should agree that we want a quality education for the children of the state. We should agree that everyone deserves clean drinking water. We should agree that there are certain basic rights that everyone deserves. All right, now, once we agree, let's start with the things we agree on and talk about how we achieve that. And it's important that process, that you start from a place where you can start together and you're not automatically on opposite sides. You're going to have different opinions. And I know I like to think I've got great ideas, but I know I don't have all the best ideas all the time. And I want to work with other people and incorporate, well, what's your good idea? Oh, okay, yeah, I think that could work. Well, how does that fit with this? And that we find ways that we can treat each other with respect and decency, but also come up with the best ideas. And you are going to have places where you just absolutely have a disagreement of what's important. But for the most part, I think once you build that baseline of willingness to talk to everyone, and that you treat everyone with the same degree of respect. And I think if you start there, you're going to be able to make a difference.
Yeah, I've been discouraged because I remember a time when compromise was not considered unacceptable. And I think at times you do have to compromise to get something to move forward.
I agree. And I know at one time, compromise became a dirty word. And I would say I would like to start with collaboration, where you're working together, and then deal with the issues where you need to compromise. And those should be where everyone gets, there's some benefit for each side and there's some loss for each side. And that's just a part of the negotiation process.
You know, Marcia, that this is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment and the 100th anniversary of the League of Women Voters and the 55th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. How would you go about helping with promoting equality for women, equality for all races, trying to make sure that as much as possible, everybody has the same level playing field for being treated within the legislature equally?
I absolutely believe that we need to make sure that we have a structure in place that supports equality for all, whether it's race, gender, sexual orientation, nationality, religion. No matter what the differences are, we need to have laws on the books that protect everyone, that no matter who you are, every human being deserves the same rights and privileges. And that I was looking at some information the other day that just, we have a long way to go. I know that there are no, for example, there are no LGBTQ protections in terms of housing or employment. North Carolina is the only state of the 50 states that does not recognize domestic violence among same-sex couples. We need to take a hard look at just what we as a state want to project. And I think that what we want to project is that we are a fair and equal state, and that we will honor the rights and privileges of everyone, no matter where they come from.
COVID-19 has made this an interesting year, to say it mildly. It certainly has changed how we've functioned as a League of Women Voters. And here we are talking virtually. We're not talking, sitting together in front of a camera. That just isn't possible. How has this pandemic made campaigning change for you? You've campaigned before, as you said, so you know what it's like to campaign when there is no COVID-19 pandemic. But how are you reaching out to voters? How are you finding you're able to get your message out? What's made this so different for you this year?
I have to tell you, it's been very disappointing. I was looking forward to having the time, the last 7 months, to be mostly in Brunswick County, introducing myself, knocking on doors, talking to individuals, having town hall opportunities where there could be groups of people and have these important conversations and get a good feel for what the issues and concerns are. Since I haven't been able to do that, I have been calling a lot of people to introduce myself as a candidate, to talk to them about what they're worried about, what their issues are, so that I have some sense of who the people are and, as I said, what their issues and concerns might be. It is hard. We do try to have Zoom meetings, but that tends to be the same folks showing up all the time. So the one way that I have been doing things a little bit different is, as I said, just making phone calls to voters in the area and trying to talk to them as much as possible.
Do you find that they're pretty open to conversations?
Some more than others. Quite yeah. It is interesting. There are some that are suspicious. There are some that don't want to talk to me when they hear what my party affiliation is. And there are others that are very grateful to have the opportunity to talk to someone and that somebody is going to listen to them. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a mixed bag.
So we're kind of at the conclusion here, except that I want you to talk about something that I haven't asked you about that you feel is important also to be considered in this election year.
This is going to be a difficult election. I think it's important that people believe in the process. I know in talking and listening to briefings from the boards of election in both New Hanover County and Brunswick County, I am very confident that they are working so hard to protect the sanctity of this election and to protect the voting process and the validity of the ballots. I talked to individuals at, at the post office, at postal workers at different places, and I see how hard they're working to uphold, their reputation. They are offended by some of the things that have been said. So I do believe that the process will work. I think that we need to make sure that as many people vote as humanly possible, vote the entire ballot, research your candidates, make sure that you know who you are voting for and that you are picking the ones that will best represent you as an individual and that will best represent your interest. We need to restore faith and trust in our government up and down the line. And that's going to be a really difficult challenge. But we have to have hope for the future. And we need to believe in our representatives that these individuals at whatever level are going to do their best for each and every one of us.
Yeah, it's, I have to also say that I've been going to county board of elections meetings and went to the first absentee count. And the absentee number of votes is just astronomical compared to previous years. There could be as many as 20,000 ballots. There were 7,400 for the first count here. So the boards of elections in New Hanover and Brunswick and Pender, all three are trying their best, I know, to bring us good, solid work on their part to make sure that the election is as fair as it can be. But it's important for the public to understand that they need to make sure that if they're unsure of how to go about voting, that they look at all the options that they have and make a plan and get out and vote. And that's one of the things that the league is so adamant about is please vote, but do it in an informed way and make sure that you have a plan this year because you're going to need one. There's lots of options for us. I think North Carolina has probably more options than the other two states that I voted in regularly. So opportunities are there. Take advantage of it and make your plan. Well, Marcia, I thank you very much for being with us today for this conversation, and good luck with your campaigning. We're pretty close. We're getting there.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, early voting will start October 15th, if I'm correct. And
Yes.
and so if you want to vote in person, that's the way to do so. Is early voting is open to you, and you can vote at any early voting site during early voting period within your county. So you've got options. I believe there's 7 in Brunswick County, and there's even more in New Hanover County. So I urge people to take advantage of voting in person if they want to during early voting time. And there's Sundays in both counties.
Absolutely.
So that's a big advantage.
It is. And the souls to the polls. One of the things I had decided I would do I did request an absentee ballot, that I would fill out the ballot, I would have it witnessed, I would put it in the envelope, make sure that the witness signed it, that everything was all squared away on it, and put a stamp on it. I intend to vote in early voting as soon as I can, but just in case I get hit by a bus, somebody can grab that ballot and throw it in the mail. It's ready to go. I want my vote to count.
Yeah, it's so important. Everybody's vote should count. And let's hope we get to that point where there's no concerns on anybody's part, that once they voted, their vote counts. Thank you, Marcia. I appreciate you being with us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.